Hi there, Harry here. I'm just going to talk you through a couple of things to look out for with the cargo longtail with regards to the electrical components and keeping cables safe and secure, and just checking for a few things that will make sure the bike runs well for you. So the first thing and most noticeable feature on this bike is probably this battery here. Obviously this can detach, and we want to just make sure that the connection points underneath are all clean and unmarked. So obviously you need to turn the key in the lock counterclockwise and then slide the battery forwards, and that loosens it off, and you can take it out. And just like with any battery, you just want to make sure that these connection points are clean and free of debris, and there's nothing obviously wrong with those. Same thing with the battery, just making sure that those points are clear of any mud or any muck that may have got in there, or any water. So the next thing to look at is the connection from the display on the handlebar. So this Bafang display has a connection point here. You shouldn't really need to take that apart, but you may just want to make sure every now and then that it's secured properly. And you can check that by making sure that the two white arrows are corresponding and meeting there, and that the connection's nice and snug. If that obviously is disconnected, you'll find that the display doesn't turn on, but just making sure that it looks like it's in the right place and there's no sign of fraying or any kinks there is important. Then we can follow these cables down along with the other cables. It goes into this cable wrap, and we can follow that under the frame. And again, you're just making sure there's no obvious signs of any kinks or any fraying going on with the cables, and just check it through the frame. So the cable comes back out behind the motor and splits off and follows the chainstay along. Those are obviously the brakes and the gearing. So you also just want to check that the cable that goes to the rear wheel here, which is the sensor cable for the motor, is securely in place, and it attaches to the chainstay here. Just make sure obviously that that's where it should be and isn't hanging off loose, and make sure that the cable isn't frayed or getting snagged by anything or kinked at all. And the magnet for that on the rear wheel is here. Make sure that's securely in place and where it should be on the spoke. So the front and rear light on the longtail are turned on and off by the handlebar display and the control unit on the front. So obviously you just want to make sure that the cables that go from the front light into the frame and the rear light, which is here, are all intact and aren't frayed or kinked at all. Obviously, the most easy way to check that those are working fine is by turning the lights on themselves, which you do by holding down the light button. You can see these are working fine, but you may just want to follow the cable from the rear light along the chainstay and back into the cable routing here, and just make sure that there's no damage done to the cables at all along there, and that the cable ties are securely in place. And if needs be, just attach a cable tie where maybe one has come off. And so with the front light attached to the front tray, just making sure that the cable that comes from there follows along one of the bars from the tray, and there's no sign of that being pulled or kinking at all. And these cable ties obviously secure it in place to stop it flapping about. But if one of those has come off, just reattach something there to make sure there's no excess cable hanging down at the front here, and that follows into the cable wrap above the forks. So that's the electrical side of the cargo longtail. Obviously it's a bike with some added electrical components, and so with any electrical equipment, just making sure that cables aren't ruptured or kinked at all or fraying, just obvious things you can look for, help keep the bike running well.